Hello everyone. In today's session, we're diving into how 3D printing is reshaping medical practice, from patient care and surgical planning to future possibilities like bioprinted tissues. Let's explore current breakthroughs and peek ahead at what's coming. To start with, what is 3D printing? 3D printing, or additive manufacturing, is the process of layering material based on a digital model to create a physical object. Unlike traditional manufacturing, which removes material from a solid block, 3D printing builds the object layer by layer from the ground up. In a medical setting, this means creating implants, anatomical models, surgical tools, and even scaffolds for tissues that are precisely tailored to a patient's unique anatomy. The process starts with a digital blueprint, usually a 3D scan, CAD, computer-aided design, or data from medical imaging like CT or MRI scans. These files are then converted into machine-readable instructions, often using a software called a slicer, which breaks the model down into hundreds or thousands of thin horizontal layers. The 3D printer follows this code to deposit materials like medical-grade plastics, resins, metals, or bioinks layer by layer. There are various types of machines used in healthcare. Fused deposition modeling, FDM printers, are common for creating models and tools using plastic filaments. Stereolithography, SLA, printers use light-sensitive resins for finer detail, ideal for surgical guides or dental appliances. Selective laser sintering, SLS, and direct metal laser sintering, DMLS, are used to print metal implants with high strength and precision. And in bioprinting, specialized machines can print living cells into tissue-like structures using bioinks. Altogether, these machines allow medical professionals to turn complex digital data into physical, patient-specific solutions with remarkable accuracy. Why is this technology gaining traction in healthcare? First, it enables personalization. Devices and models match the exact shape and size needed for a patient. Second, it accelerates prototyping. Designs can be tested and adjusted rapidly. Let me here take a moment to define what is prototyping designs in the medical field. In healthcare, prototyping refers to the process of creating an early, physical version of a medical device, implant, surgical tool, or anatomical model based on a digital design. The goal is to test its function, fit, and usability before producing the final version for actual clinical use. How it works? First, you start with a digital medical design. Using data from CT or MRI scans, engineers or clinicians create a digital 3D model, such as a custom implant or surgical guide. Then, you print a prototype using a 3D printer. The prototype is often printed in plastic or resin for rapid feedback. It may not be made of the final material, but it accurately represents the size, shape, and structure. Then, you test and evaluate. Surgeons or specialists examine the prototype to check whether it fits the patient's anatomy, whether it's easy to use in surgery, and whether it needs any adjustments. And finally, refine the design. Based on this feedback, the design is improved and retested if needed, before producing the final version using approved medical-grade materials. So, let's go back to the main topic. One of the reasons is that it can reduce costs for customized solutions, while simultaneously improving preoperative planning and patient understanding through tangible models. Now, let's make some examples. First, orthopedics, custom prosthetics and surgical guides. Yes, in orthopedics, 3D printing is making waves. Surgeons can now use custom prosthetics, such as hip or knee implants that fit a patient's unique bones. Take spinal surgery as an example. Patient-specific guides help align screws and positioning precisely. Studies show that this customization can lead to shorter surgical time and improved recovery, because everything fits perfectly from the start, And probably many things have already been tested before the surgeon goes to the theater. Another example in cardiology, where 3D printing is used to create anatomical heart models and bioprinting. Here, 3D printed heart replicas are used extensively for surgical planning, especially in complex congenital heart cases, for example. Surgeons can see and even handle patient-specific models to rehearse procedures. On the research side, scientists are working on bioprinted cardiac patches, mini tissue that helps repair damage after a heart attack. Experimental but promising. Also, in dentistry and maxillofacial surgery, dentistry has been quick to adopt 3D printing. From crowns and bridges to orthodontic devices, these prints allow for fast turnaround and perfect fit. In reconstructive facial surgery, surgeons use facial bone models to plan procedures or design reconstruction plates. One impressive example: a child with facial trauma received a 3D printed mandibular implant tailored exactly to their bone structure, leading to better cosmetic and functional outcomes. And in dermatology and custom prosthetics and cosmetic applications, 3D printing is creating silicone-based prosthetics, like ears and noses. These are scanned from the patient's unique features, then printed with lifelike detail and fit. It offers patients more natural-looking results and quicker turnaround compared to traditional molding techniques. Bioprinting and tissue engineering is a very interesting and promising topic, where this technology, bioprinting, is pushing the boundaries even further. What happens here is that living cells are mixed into bioinks, and they are printed to form tissue-like structures, like skin, cartilage, or small organs. For example, researchers have already developed skin grafts using bioprinted skin tissue. These are being trialed in burn victims, helping regenerate damaged tissue and reduce complications. Though still in very early phases and in clinical trials, it holds real promise for organ regeneration. What about medical devices and surgical tools? 3D printing also enhances surgical tools and devices. Hospitals are creating custom handheld instruments or guides tailored to specific procedures. For instance, a printed tool might help align a catheter precisely during minimally invasive surgery. These tools can improve accuracy and reduce dependence on generic instruments. Medical education and surgical simulation. Educators are using 3D printed models for training. Another very interesting application of 3D printing is in medical education and surgical simulation, where educators are using 3D printed models for training. Anatomical replicas, like organs, tumors, or vascular systems, allow medical students and residents to practice procedures in a more realistic way. In interventional radiology, for example, trainees use 3D printed vascular structures to simulate stent placement without risk to real patients. Despite all these advantages, challenges remain. Regulatory bodies like the FDA must approve 3D printed medical devices, and ensuring consistent quality across prints can be tough. Identical models need precise materials and calibration. Variations can affect safety or effectiveness, so ISO standards and rigorous validation are essential. Another challenge is the ethical considerations and intellectual property. So, ethical questions arise too. When bioprinting organs, who owns the tissue? And when using patient imaging data to create models, how is privacy maintained? Intellectual property is also complicated. 3D printing medical devices and models may push legal boundaries unless IP rights and data use are clearly defined. But what does the future hold? Bioprinted organs for transplant, like kidneys or liver, are a long-term goal. Hospitals may soon print on-demand devices, potentially right at the bedside. And as AI merges with 3D printing and robotics, we might see surgical automation, where models, instruments, and robotics work in sync. NASA is even studying bioprinting tissues in microgravity, hinting at remote healthcare in space. To wrap up this orientation session, all what we need to know is that 3D printing is potentially transforming multiple medical areas, from orthopedics and cardiology to education and bioprinting. With personalization, faster innovation, and a pathway to printing living tissue, the opportunities are huge. As this field grows, staying informed and exploring practical applications in your practice or research will prepare you for the next frontier in healthcare. But I always say, you need to be well informed at any stage. Thank you and see you in the next tutorial.